Hello, welcome back once again to Brand Institute of Forensics and Security. My name is Mr. Wayne. You already know me, I believe, because we have been moving progressively from the day we started this course. And we are talking about emergency incidents. And I've divided this presentation into two, part one and part two of investigation. We are talking about investigating an incident. We are talking about investigating an emergency incident. So this is lesson 9, and then lesson 10 will be part two of the investigation. And we spoke at length in lesson 8 about the various types of issues or incidences that can occur at the workplace, and you are required to investigate them and submit reports to the management. You also, in the private industry, you may require to conduct a basic investigation or primary investigation and hand over part of the investigation to top organizational CEO or top organizational GM, and then the matter may also be referred to external agencies, including the police or also the private investigation entities. When we want to investigate an incident, we have to come up with a process. It is a process because we are going to be gathering evidence, we are going to be analyzing the evidence, and then we are going to be making recommendations. And then we are going to be making the recommendation inside a detailed report. And the report is very important because the management will make decisions based on the recommendations contained in the report. So report writing is a very, very important aspect of any security investigation, report writing. And I can tell you from my career, many years in the security industry, many security managers, many security officers, many security supervisors cannot write a clear, conclusive, convincing security report. So you should develop your skill in this area of writing reports. Coming back to investigation, there are steps that you must follow when you want to conduct an investigation. There are steps, and step number 1 is to prepare for the investigation. And then step number 2 is to visit the scene, visiting the scene. And then step number 3 is conducting interviews. You interview witnesses, victims, suspects, you interview them. And then step number 4, you conduct examination of physical evidence. Evidence is very important. Remember, we said whenever two people come into contact or material come into contact, there is always trace evidence left behind. Trace evidence left behind. If you are a student who is also learning with us the other lesson of security investigation, then you'll be able to remember somebody we called Edward. Can you remember the other name? Can you remember the other name? He was from Lyon, France. Can you remember the other name? Try. He is the one who came up with the principle that whenever two objects or two people come into contact, definitely a material of exchange occurs, depending on the intensity, depending on the duration, depending on the impact, depending on the time these two people or two objects were together. The material is deposited from one to the other. And this is what we call trace evidence, and trace evidence is very important in investigation. So when we talk about physical evidence, remember we are also talking about trace evidence. And then we have analyzing the evidence. Analyzing the evidence is a very complex task because sometimes you may need forensic experts. You may need forensic experts to assist you analyze evidence. There are forensic experts who deal with analysis of documents. There are forensic evidence who deal with analysis of photos and video recordings. There are forensic analysis who analyze, let's say, fraudulent documentations. So these are some kind of the experts that are in the field that you may require to assist you to analyze evidence. And then finally, there's a very important step, which is preparing the report. Preparing the report is a very, very important step because your report should stand the test of time. Your report should be based on facts. Your reports should be based on evidence, not bias. You should not be biased based on tribalism, based on nepotism, based on other issues, gender. You should not be, your report should show that you are just reporting things the way they happen. You are not biased, or you are not taking sides. As we continue, we see that under preparation, when you want to prepare to investigate an incident, time is very important. Time is very important when you want to prepare to investigate an incident. If something has happened and it has been reported, then you should initiate investigation immediately, as soon as possible. As soon as possible. And we say the ideal situation will be to have all the necessary resources available before the incident so that the investigators can attend immediately to their tasks. Some interim factors to consider. There are some factors to consider under preparation, and these factors are determine the scope of the investigation. Before you go deep into preparation to start investigating an incident, determine the scope. And the scope will depend on the nature of the incident. Remember, all issues that happen are very, very different. They are very, very different. Every incident is unique in its own way and requires an investigation tailored to the particular situation. So every incident is unique. Every incident is different, and it requires investigation that is specific to that particular task. So determine the scope. Then take the time upfront to determine the techniques that will be employed, sequence of events, data to be analyzed, individuals involved, and expected outcomes. Factors to consider under here include what resources are needed to perform the investigation. Do you need vehicles? Do you need equipment? Do you need staff? Do you need money to travel from one location to the other so that you can interview witnesses, so that you can interview victims? What are the resources required? And then the investigation kit. You must have an investigation checklist that will guide you, that I have done this, I've covered this, I've covered this. And then investigation form, and then high visibility tip. This one is very important to secure the scene, to make sure that nobody is accessing the scene. And then we have pencils, very important, pens, measuring tape, clipboard, camera, very important, video camera with film tape, very important, graph paper, plastic bags, and envelopes, note paper, and a flashlight, and a ruler. These are purposes of taking measurements at the scene. Plastic bags and envelopes are very important because these are storage devices. When you collect evidence, then you have to store them inside these plastic bags and envelopes to avoid contamination or to avoid tampering with the pieces of evidence that have been recovered from the scene. Also, safety equipment. You may need safety equipment. Personal protective equipment. Hard hat, eye protection, hearing protection, protective clothing, safety footwear that will be important when you are accessing the scene. And then you also may need communication gadgets. You may also need other guided by other legal obligations. What is your attitude regarding the investigation? These are some of the things you must you must take into consideration when you are talking about safety equipment. Remember, when we talk about legal obligations, we mean that there are investigations that you as a private security officer, you are not supposed to carry them out. All you need to do is secure the evidence, secure the scene, and then pass the information to the law enforcement officers who are authorized to carry out those things, especially issues that are outlined in the penal code of different countries. For example, somebody has been murdered, somebody has been raped, somebody has been shot, somebody has been assaulted, he has grave bodily injuries, then you have to refer this to law enforcement, which are the police. Also, you have to consider safety equipment as you prepare to start an investigation into an incident. The investigators must be seen as sincere, and we have talked about this, knowledgeable, and people who can use the techniques of conducting an incident investigation. It is important that the investigator exhibit a behavior of non-judgment and diplomacy. Much of the success of the investigation depends on the investigator's attitude, approach, and communication style. People who have bad attitude will not succeed in investigation. People who have poor communication style will not succeed in investigation. People who judge others even before they can find out facts of what happened cannot succeed in investigation. Those are some of the things you need to consider under preparation. And then some of the tips to consider also is biases. Biases, you should avoid biases and then use your experience and skills, how it affects your perception. Avoid jumping to conclusions. Those people who jump to conclusions that something has been reported, and even before you receive all information, you hear the person who's supposed to investigate the matter is telling you, I already know, I knew this thing would happen. I knew there is a culprit. I already even know the person who did this thing. That is what we call avoid jumping to conclusions. And then use appropriate voice tone, and then minimize stress wherever possible. Be aware of your non-verbal communication, e.g. facial expressions, gestures, and behave professionally, representative of your company's safety and health culture, cautious, open, honest, candid, and non-threatening. You know, there are some security managers who threaten people, or security officers who threaten employees in the organization, that I will investigate you. I'm going to investigate you. And that one is very wrong. Don't threaten people in the organization. Be ethical, be professional, behave professionally, behave professionally. Honesty is also very important. And this is one quality of being a successful security investigator. If you are undergoing the other lesson for security investigation, you'll see that we discussed qualities of security investigators. And among them is honesty. Among them is a good attitude. Among them is a critical thinking aspect. Among them is people who avoid taking sides or biases. So those are some of the things to consider under preparation. And then you have to visit the scene. Something has been reported, an incident has occurred, people are injured, they have been taken to the hospital. You have to visit the scene. And we say speed and thoroughness are both necessary in incident investigations. Memories fade and evidence disappear, especially evidence that is contaminated or people continue tampering with it, or even environmental factors damage evidence, damage exhibits. Balancing the numerous activities to be undertaken when visiting the scene is a great challenge for the investigator. You have to balance the activities that you have to undertake when visiting the scene. And then also, you have to take control of the situation and make the area safe for yourself and any others entering the scene. If you are going to a scene where an incident has occurred, you must first assess the scene and ensure that you are safe, that you are not taking yourself or others into danger. And then also, it is imperative that management be notified immediately of the incident. I have always had a habit in my career as a security manager and later as a security director. If something has occurred, before even I start the investigation, I'll go back to the security office and drop my GM a mail, a very small email that, sir, we have a theft report and we are initiating investigation. So already the general manager knows there is an investigation that is ongoing. You just don't continue calling people for interviews, recording statements without the knowledge of the top management. Please take that into consideration. It is imperative that management be notified immediately of the incident, injured parties, damaged material and equipment, and any requests to shut down operations to secure the area. So work hand in hand together with your GM, or if you are reporting to the operations director when an incident has occurred. please don't proceed to investigate it without passing information to the top management. And then we say that chaos sometimes emerge or result from an incident, and the people may be in panic mode. The situation must be brought under control at once in order for rescue work to proceed. Secondary incidences such as fires, equipment, or structural failures may result from the initial incident. These hazards should be controlled as soon as possible. What do you mean to say when you are approaching a scene of an incident? Be very, very careful. Be very, very careful because secondary incidences may occur, especially fire, equipment, or structural failures, etc. So you have to approach the scene with a lot of caution. Approach the scene with a lot of caution. And then also, as we proceed on, we say that you have to care for the injured. We said there are priorities when it comes to incident management. And the priorities include saving life, administering first aid, controlling the situation, minimizing damage, controlling whatever is happening. So caring for the injured involves issues related to first aid. First aid or medical attendants should be called to care for the injured immediately. If chemicals are involved, ensure that copies of the material safety data sheets are provided to the hospital with the injured. As a security professional, make a habit of understanding the material safety data sheets. This is information related to the materials that are at your site, detergents, fuel products, fertilizers, such kind of materials that are used at your workplace, cleaning detergents, even some cooking items. You must be able to know chemicals are dangerous, and chemicals have what we call material safety data sheets, and you should know what are the dangers involved with these particular chemicals. And then also secure the area. We have spoken about this many times, and you know at your level, securing the area is protecting evidence to avoid further injuries or damage. People should be kept out of the incident scene until the investigators arrive, except to relieve suffering. One method is to rope off the area and notify management that the incident scene is non-accessible. Notify management that the incident scene is non-accessible. And then contact appropriate people. We said earlier on also you should have contacts of the people that you should contact in case there is an emergency. You should have contacts of top management, contacts of police, contacts of nearby security management, and even contacts of family members, management staff, family. If the incident involves some of the workers are injured, then there should be information related to next of kin or family members. And this information is usually secured with the HR department. If you go to individual's file, you will find there are contacts of next of kin. If something goes wrong, who is to be informed. Also gather names and addresses of witnesses. Now you are at the scene. Inquire with those at the incident scene and management staff as to who witnessed the incident. Obtain the witnesses' name, addresses, and phone numbers, and make a point of contacting them for an interview as soon as possible. Sketch the scene and take measurements to improve the usefulness of field notes. Sketch the scene and measure the area. Note and map the positions and condition of the injured workers, tools, equipment, and materials involved. These are some of the things that you should consider if you are conducting an investigation, whether internally or you have called external parties to come and do the investigation. Then they will have to consider what we are talking about. And we are talking about taking notes, we are talking about mapping the scene, we are talking about sketching the scene, and we are talking about measuring the scene. Also, we have some tips on sketching. Place the important information in the center of the drawing and draw the rest around it. Include all measurements, angles, and direction indicators taken at the site. Include the final positions of casualties and debris. So you have to do sketching, and sketching is a detailed investigative technique. So you may need to refer this one to law enforcement. You in the private security industry, the only thing you may need to do is to secure the scene and inform public law enforcement officers, which are the police or the CID department officers, to visit the scene and conduct detailed investigation, including sketching. And then do not worry about making drawings to scale or creating artistically perfect drawings. Attempt to draw each item correctly related to other items present. Label items correctly, and then cross-reference your sketches and photographs to applicable files and occupational safety and health committee minute forms. Those are some of the areas that you also need to know when it comes to investigating employees who have been injured. You also know that the Occupational Health and Safety Committee will definitely be involved because they have an interest and they are interested parties when it comes to this type of investigation. Then also photographing is also very important. Photographs and videos recording aid in preparing and delivering your report, as well as in analyzing conditions at the site of the incident. Photos and videos are very useful when briefing stakeholders such as management and safety and healthy committee. Photographs and video recordings should always be taken as soon as possible. That's the point I wanted to put across. Take photos and video recordings as soon as possible, the moment you arrive at the scene. In every security office, in every facility, the security office should have a digital camera or a digital video recorder. When an issue has occurred, go to the scene with the recorder or the camera and take photos and videos. And point of caution, do not share with the third parties this information because it is still under investigation. You are not allowed to share corporate or organizational information with third parties without authority. You could end up in court of law. So even if you take photos and you are a security manager, don't start sending them through WhatsApp, through Facebook. This is happening at our work area. Somebody has killed another person with a knife, or somebody has stolen a very large quantity of money, and here are the photos. Don't share. And then we say below are some techniques useful in taking photographs at the scene. Start by photographing the general area, then move to the specific scene of the incident. Start by photographing general area. Take photos from all sides and several angles, as well as close-up and isolation shots. Ask witnesses to direct where shots should be taken and note their comments. Ask witnesses to direct where shots should be taken and note their comments. It means that from their comments, you can easily attach one of the witnesses already as a suspect. And not attaching them deliberately, we said you should not use biasing, but if you listen to the comments, you can immediately make a conclusion that this person knows more about this issue than he is telling me. Then you may need to pursue that line further. We say also create a photo log, which includes when the shot was taken, date and time of day, by whom, location, under what lighting conditions, what the shot contains, identifying a number on sketch of the area, brief description of what the photograph is trying to identify. It is also a very critical area. Taking photographs should also be referred to law enforcement in case of serious issues. It should immediately be referred to law enforcement. They do this job better. But you have seen from movies, you have seen from investigation news how photos are taken. They are taken all areas from all angles. You'll see the investigators moving from one area, take photo, another area, take photo, angle, turn photo, take photo, then take photo, move closer, take photo. So that is what we are talking about. When video recording, narrate the pertinent points identified above. Collecting evidence samples. This is also another very sensitive area. Depending on the incident, you may want to take one or more samples of evidence found at the incident scene, which may require examination by qualified personnel. The decision to utilize experts to collect evidence should be exercised, e.g., handling controlled products or analysis of engineered systems. So you may need experts to help you in collecting of evidence samples. That is also something that is very sensitive, and it is an area that you should know as a private security officer, that if there is a situation, then you may need to involve law enforcement who are the police, and they will do these details. We also see that an investigator must ensure that he or she exercises caution when handling evidence. Handling evidence is very sensitive. Handling evidence is very sensitive because if you incorrectly handle evidence, then you may turn the problem to yourself. To protect themselves against harm from handling evidence, such as damaged equipment or chemical substances, one should assess the need to wear personal protective equipment. Personal protective equipment, eye gear, headgear, protective clothing, even shoes, even hand gloves. They are very, very important when investigating an issue or when approaching an incident location. And then also, to preserve the evidence, care should be taken to maintain the original state of the evidence. That is also something very important, since liquids can evaporate quickly and other materials may be cleaned up before you get a sample. It is very important to take your samples as soon as possible. Take your samples as soon as possible. And then we say examples of things you might want to sample include any tools, material, machinery, part or sub-assembly which is suspected of failure, malfunction, misfit, or faulty design. And then air samples or other samples if the presence of impurities or toxic substances may have contributed to the incident. And then liquids or solids which are not normally present at the site of the incident. These are some of the things that you might want to include in your list of samples to be collected for further analysis and further examination to identifying criminals or to finding out what happened, what caused the incident. We also see that carefully wrap and label everything in clean, dry, and leak-proof containers. Note where each specimen came from and what the initial appearance was like. Avoid destroying or altering exhibits during examination. Note the environment, e.g. noise, heat, cold, ventilation, and chemical contaminants may affect or contaminate the exhibits and thereby tamper with the evidence. And then find out what the weather conditions were at the time of the incidents, if applicable. Find out what was the weather condition so that you see if it was in a rainy or high heat situation, then you know that the evidence that you are collecting may not be in the original form. They may already be tampered with or altered by the environmental conditions. And then we say, not if a serious incident occurs at the workplace. Always refer these matters to safety and health officer who may be involved in conducting an investigation. The officer will require that items involved in the incident, e.g. equipment, materials, not to be moved unless it is necessary to release an injured person or to avoid creating additional hazards. So multi-organizations, large organizations like Kenya Airways, definitely they have a safety and health officer who deals with safety issues. So this information should be brought to the attention of the safety officer immediately, almost immediately. And then return the incident scene to normal use. Return the incident scene to normal use. Once you have gathered all the evidence and information needed, ensure that the incident scene is returned to normal use. This may involve disinfecting the area if blood was spilled, checking equipment and materials to assess functionality, and ensuring that the incident will not be repeated. What are some of the precautions, some of the things you need to do when you want to conduct an investigation at the corporate level? Then we see that if in doubt about the functionality of equipment, materials, or process, have it checked by those who are technically qualified, preferably those from external of the organization. So you may need to refer, mostly issues related to investigation, refer them to police. Make a habit of having friends in the police force near you or even far away, so that if something occurs, then you can inform them, I need your help, either officially or not officially, to examine what is happening here and assist me to come up with answers. Make sure you always have friends in the law enforcement. It will make your work easier. And then what action should the employer take? An incident has occurred, it has been reported, it has been investigated. The employer has a duty to promptly respond to the report and advise the committee in writing of the remedial actions taken. The committee should list these corrective measures and follow up on them. A summary of the incident report should be posted in the workplace for information of workers. Information must be informed that this and this occurred, and this is how it was handled, and everything is right. And then also we say that in conclusion, a copy of the report should also be kept in the committee's file. We are talking about Occupational Health and Safety Committee's file, and available if requested by the Workplace Safety. Note, names of individuals involved in the incident should be omitted from this version. So the version that will be kept in the files of the Occupational Health and Safety, names and identity of the people who appear in the investigation should be omitted from this version. That's what we are talking about, to protect their integrity, because these people are still innocent until proven guilty. So you have to make sure that you are not tarnishing anybody's name, you are not tarnishing anybody's reputation, you are following laid down procedures of investigation. And remember, at most organizations, there is a policy of investigation, how to conduct an investigation. There's a policy governing how an investigation should be conducted within the organization. It even tells you which issues are minor and which issues are major. It tells you which issues must be brought to the attention of third parties, including the police, and which issues should be handled at the organizational level. So check out for these policies at your workplace. They exist. Is there a policy that governs how investigations should be carried out? If something goes wrong here, that one is a very, very important information. We are going to stop here, and then we will again look at lesson number 10, which is part of this lesson. That is part 2. We have already done part 1. So we have mentioned some of the very important things for you to take note of during investigation of an incident at your workplace. There are various things that you really need to take care of so that people do not get terminated for no apparent reason, or some people are set free to continue working in the organization when actually they are criminals. So your investigation should be above point. Your report writing should be on point. Your report writing, we said, is the most critical and the most important document that you will ever write in your line of duty. So thank you very much. We will take a break and then we continue to lesson number 10.